Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me again, and here's another update on the 1964 Dodge Custom 880. Today it's going to be a light switch replacement. So a while back I I cleaned the rheostat connections inside the original light switch, but recently it's the gauge lights are flickering at some odd rotations as I would, rotate the knob on the light switch. It would kind of flicker on and off just a little bit, and unfortunately the cleaning job that I did on it like probably a couple years back it didn't hold up too well, because it's kind of starting to act up a little bit. It's not acting up to the point where it's like, hey, this is kind of dangerous, I can't see my gauges or something like that. It's nothing like that. I just kind of wanted to upload this as for some informational purposes, just like the gas tank removal video, and a little bit of a a tip, hopefully some tips on the way as I'm removing the dimmer switch. I believe that some old folks like to call it that as well, or dimmer switch, or just light switch. But we're going to be getting into replacing the light switch on this video today. I will do a before and after shot of the gauges with the old switch versus the new switch. A standard motor products, the part number is DS156, and here's the part here. And just gonna let you guys look at the terminals there. So I believe some Valiants and a lot of the Dodges, maybe a lot of the Jeeps, like 1989 or 1990s Jeeps and Cherokees, have pretty much the identical switch also. And if you have the factory switch and you're trying to get by on the cheap, you can clean up this rheostat connection that's down in there, the rheostat coil in there. It is possible to remove this coil. You need to pull this porcelain insulator down, and I believe there's a clamp somewhere on this where it allows you to remove this part of the bracket also, so you can slide this porcelain off straight and out. So we're going to be disconnecting the harness that connects to the light switch. I'm going to be using this new switch as a kind of a reference on to see what I'm looking at. Switch harness is all the way in the back. It's located roughly center of the screen, if you can see that. To remove the pull knob that's on the light switch up there, you need to depress this button that's on the back of the switch here. In my case, my switch is orientated like that, so I just need to find the button that's hiding up here, and then we have to just yank off this button up here while this button up here on the switch is depressed. Alright, I just gotta find that switch and gotta depress the button. There we go. So the reason why you want to depress the button is this. If you can see that closely, there's this little notch that this little I believe this little locking pin inserts into. And if the button is not depressed, this locking pin will not release from this little notched in area of this knob here. So now that we have the knob out of the way, it's you'd probably want something like needle nose pliers and probably rubber tipped, and then you want to rotate this little bezel here counterclockwise and it'll come out. In this case, I can't unscrew it with my bare hands, and it's not exactly the tool that I would probably use for the job, but I have a minus driver here, and yeah, some of you are probably cringing at this, you know, saying like, oh, you're gonna damage the finish. And there you go. There you go. That's loose enough. I could unscrew it by hand. And there you go. That's your bezel. Now we're gonna put that to the side and grab the light, because I think it's hanging on by a thread back there. And here you are, your light switch. And here's our old light switch. It looks like it did start to corrode again, even though I cleaned it up. Maybe that was 3 years ago. And I think it's starting to take its toll, because my gauges are flickering again. I could probably clean this up and put it back in service, but in this case, I think I'm just going to retire this into my old tool bucket, part bucket. So if my new part breaks again, I'll just put this back in, I guess. New switches to the left and the old switches to the right. And once again, this is the back side of the switches. Old one to the right, new one to the left. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the light switch up into the back and screw in the bezel to keep the light switch in place. And also, you may have noticed there's a little notch right here. That little notch is right here. It's this little tang that's sticking out of the light switch. That keeps the light switch in a certain orientation. So in this case, notch is right there, and the little raised tangs like that. So we're going to be seating the switch just like that, up under the dash. It's a little bit lopsided, so maybe a little bit difficult to get the harness in because it's off to this side, and we don't have much space to work with against the kick panels. There you go. So that should be it. So now I can screw in the bezel, and we can worry about the push rod later. Do be sure not to cross thread it. And there we go. Now I'm going to take a minus driver to that and just kind of snug it up just a little bit. You don't need to, you know, go aggro on it. Just a little bit snug is fine. There you go. Now it's pretty fairly tight, and it's definitely not coming out. And we're gonna get to installing the harness and putting the knob back in it. I think we are done. We got the harness and the switch bolted into the back of the dash. All we need to do now is just put this knob back in, and we are done. From your guys' perspective, it was pretty much instantaneous, but so what happened after I installed the light switch was that the light switch was defective. The releasing pin up here, this releasing button, would not depress on my end. So then I had a factory defective part. So so this roughly took 1 week to get it in stock. There's just this parts shortage just everywhere wherever you go. So right now it's kind of tight at the moment. So that was pretty much it on the process of, well, removing a light switch, or dimmer switch, I believe some old folks like to call it that. It's not too hard. It's not too hard, and it's not the easiest also. Definitely pretty challenging to snake your hand up underneath the dash and pressing the button that's underneath the switch on the light switch, and depressing that and pulling out the pin, or pulling out the dimmer switch or light switch knob, doing the same thing. It can take some dexterity and some patience, and potentially some curse words, because removing these light switch knobs is can be pretty annoying at times. And in my case, it didn't fuss too much. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and yeah, I guess that about sums it up with the light switch replacement. Thanks. This is a before shot with the old switch. Some mild flickering, if you can see that. I'm not sure how it's going to show up on the camera. And this is dimming it. As you can see, the dimming is not consistent. It goes dim, 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 and then suddenly bright, and then kind of flickers on and off. And this is the brightest, but if you go to the brightest setting, it sometimes flickers like it did right there. So we're going to be looking out for that. So this is the after the old switch has been replaced, and the flickering of the gauges has become pretty much minimized or minimal. And I'll post a high resolution picture also. But one thing I did notice is the gauges goes dim at a I'm not exactly sure how to put it, but at a very smooth increase and decrease of lighting. Like sometimes on the old one, it'll go dim, 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 and then suddenly bright. This one goes dim, slightly dim, dim, and then bright. But this looks pretty good, and flickering is very much minimized. So this is pretty good, I'd say.